they forced me out of the very company I had built, accompanied by a security guard who carried the scent of Doritos and regret. That happened 5 weeks ago. But if I am being honest, and at this stage why not, the tale actually begins with a microwave that short-circuited in my small studio apartment 9 years ago. I was reheating leftover pad thai while troubleshooting the initial version of our sentiment analysis model. It was the middle of the night. I had a pounding migraine and was possibly only a few hours away from accidentally creating something that would later help a Fortune 100 company escape a billion-dollar public relations crisis. At that moment, the company was just a dream. It was just me, a whiteboard, and a laptop that sounded like a dying cat. The walls were cracked, the neighbors yelled through the drywall about who owed who a vape cartridge, and my definition of comfort was 2-ply toilet paper. Yet the model functioned. When it did, I experienced a foolish, chest-thumping kind of happiness, as if I had beaten gravity itself. Within 18 months, my apartment had become an illegal fire hazard due to the number of employees packed inside. We had a caffeine budget that surpassed our rent. Somehow, amid sleepless nights, crushed ramen packets, and an odd incident where our backend went viral because someone mistakenly believed we were forecasting the apocalypse, we caught attention. A medium-sized firm suddenly appeared, offering promises of funding, growth, and mentorship. They said they valued my vision and simply wanted to help scale it. So I sold my company for $1. No, that is not an error. I sold it for a single dollar, not because I am some kind of... A seemingly foolish move turned out clever because the agreement was crafted to secure me equity over the long term, influence, and most crucially, a bulletproof clause hidden deep within the contract. If I were ever dismissed without a valid reason, I could repurchase my shares at the original price of $1. I recall my lawyer Mason hesitating when he read that provision. "Do you think they will overlook it?" he inquired. I chuckled and said, "They will not even notice." And indeed, they didn't. Not the new Chief Financial Officer Brandon, with his rigid jaw and inflated MBA ego. Not Vanessa, the Vice President of Brand Alignment or whatever official title she assigned herself, who once complained that the word data was too masculine for our pitch deck. Certainly not the board members who barely glanced beyond the financial projections. Before I continue, I must be honest with you. 95% of you watching now are not subscribed. I understand, commitment can be daunting, but I am aiming to reach 10,000 subscribers for the first time ever. If you enjoy stories about arrogant executives inadvertently handing me back my empire for the cost of a gas station coffee, please consider subscribing. No pressure, just a digital fist bump. Now, where were we? After the sale, I remained officially as Chief Strategy Officer and unofficially the last person in the room who still cared. At first, it was manageable. They allowed me to lead the product team while Brandon stayed in his spreadsheet domain and Vanessa shared motivational quotes on LinkedIn while indulging at networking brunches. But subtle changes started to occur. Monthly innovation. Meetings transformed into brand alignment sessions without any engineers invited. The research and development area was repainted in soft pastel colors, inspired by mindfulness, which ended up giving everyone headaches. Instead of examining user feedback carefully, we began processing it through an AI designed to enhance tone and make everything sound more positive. Meanwhile, I kept getting dragged into meetings where I was simply ignored. Brandon would interrupt me constantly, using buzzwords like market synergies and agile recalibration. Vanessa started presenting me as our founding spirit, which was corporate speak for someone who used to be important. I stayed silent, took notes, and observed everything closely. Then one night at 2 in the morning, just me, a bottle of bourbon, and a growing sense of dread, I pulled out the original contract. I found a clause still valid and enforceable. Section 14C was hidden right after a page filled with arbitration terms and intellectual property disclaimers. Mason was still my lawyer, answering the phone when I called. He didn't ask questions, simply said, "Just start preparing." He knew exactly what was coming. The first casualty was the whiteboard. It was an old, classic beast with chipped corners and forever smudged by dry erase ghosts from countless brainstorming sessions. We named it Bertha. I had sketched the entire minimum viable product architecture on it the night before our initial investor pitch. The developers would leave strange cartoons on it at 3 in the morning to survive grueling development sprints. That whiteboard absorbed our sweat, blood, and an alarming amount of cheap coffee stains. Vanessa made sure it was removed during one of the meetings. The atmosphere in her office was undergoing a transformation. She cheerfully mentioned that Bertha emitted founder trauma. That was during the very first week. By the fourth week, the regular product meeting was renamed as a brand alignment session. No engineers or data scientists were present, only marketing professionals discussing how our user analytics platform should inspire confidence instead of causing anxiety through harsh transparency of metrics. Brandon listened attentively during those discussions, which was quite surprising coming from someone who once said, "Why do we even need a UX team? Cannot we just copy Shopify?" The change in energy was gradual, but it irritated me deeply like fiberglass beneath the skin. Clients who previously contacted me directly began introducing their new representatives. Middle management trained to overlook actual problems and express gratitude for patience. Our top data specialist, Asha, caught me in the parking lot one evening. "I'm getting offers," she whispered as if the walls had ears. "Genuine offers with salaries twice what I earn here." "What is going on upstairs?" I replied honestly. "I do not know, but I am watching closely." The engineering department shifted from a lively chaos filled with sticky notes and late-night snacks to a ghost town of empty desks and recycled buzzwords. They cut the natural language processing research budget by 70% to fund a rebranding campaign featuring a beach ball mascot named Trusty. Trusty for an AI analytics company. I almost smashed my keyboard against a window. They began dismissing unnecessary positions. This corporate environment felt rigid for anyone who did not blindly follow the prevailing narrative. When I tried to raise doubts, Brandon smiled as if he were posing for a toothpaste commercial and told me, "You are emotionally attached to that vague strategic clarity." Vanessa added with a serious expression, "We have to think like a rocket ship, not a museum." She said that while wearing an expensive jumpsuit adorned with stars. That evening, I went home, poured myself a drink, and pulled the contract from my locked cabinet once more. I reread Section 14C slowly and carefully. The executive is terminated without cause. She may exercise her right to repurchase the asset as defined in Exhibit A at the original price within 30 days of notice, provided that I did not finish the sentence. I did not need to. The clause remained in place, still legal and binding. The next morning, Mason texted me without any prompt. "Still want me watching their filings?" I responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Then I printed the clause again, folded it carefully, and slipped it into the inside flap of my work laptop sleeve. Not because I planned to use it yet, but because something deep inside me, something instinctive and sharpened by experience, began whispering. They were going to push me, and when they did, they would not see it coming. This came to pass during the second quarter review. What should have been a routine meeting about numbers instead turned into a live execution. The boardroom was icy cold, the kind of expensive chill that says we pay too much for air conditioning just because we can. I was flipping through the monthly performance deck when Brandon abruptly interrupted me. "Let us change direction," he said, smirking as if he had rehearsed the line. "Vanessa has a presentation that truly reflects our updated brand identity." I blinked, confused because we were supposed to be talking about product retention across different industries, but he was already signaling to the assistant who dimmed the lights as if we were at a grand theater. Vanessa pressed her Bluetooth remote with dramatic flair, and a slide appeared titled, "From Sentiment to Synergy, the Next Chapter." And there it was, our analytics dashboard that I had painstakingly created in my tiny apartment, transformed into a vibrant carousel of emojis, gradients, and a cheerful cartoon character named Trusty wearing sunglasses. Vanessa was radiating confidence, telling us that we were changing our approach. No more drowning in data. Customers want comfort, simplicity, and friendly vibes. Think of it as a blend between Duolingo and Opera. I chuckled, unable to hold back. One sharp bark of disbelief came from Brandon. "Do you find this amusing?" "No, I find this tragic," he replied. Silence followed. Vanessa gave that fragile PR smile she uses just before she snaps. "We value your dedication, but let us not cling to founder nostalgia. That phase is, well, quaint. Yet we are scaling up now." "Founder nostalgia," I repeated slowly as if savoring a spoiled strawberry. Brandon then addressed the board. "Frankly, we need to reconsider whether her role matches where we are headed. Vision is important, but alignment is crucial, and a point of tension has been reached." He mentioned this so casually, as if we were talking about changing a logo. Everyone, myself included, felt it deeply. A boundary had been crossed. No decision was finalized that day. That day, no one stood up to declare, "You're out," aloud. Still, the message lingered in the air like the fresh smell before a thunderstorm. I closed my laptop, leaned back, and reflected. That evening, I drove home quietly. Not angry or sad, just emotionally distant, as if a switch had flipped and I was observing my own collapse like a nature documentary, narrated by David Attenborough. At 2:37 in the morning, I messaged Mason, "Pull the documents. If they fire me, we're activating the plan." Mason replied, "Copy that. We'll get everything ready." Then I went to the kitchen, poured a drink, and stared at the contract carefully tucked inside my laptop sleeve. Let them try. I had already paid the price once to build this company. Now they would pay for forgetting who designed the entire blueprint. Have you ever watched someone pose with a new house for photos while wearing a smile? That is how the following 3 weeks felt. Surface appearances and buzzwords, while they dismantled everything that made the company valuable. First to go was Julian, our lead UX designer who had been with me since the garage days. Brandon called it a strategic sunset of overlapping roles. Julian's voice trembled as he told me, "They didn't even let me clear my desk." Security escorted him out as if he had vandalized the servers. 2 days later, marketing swallowed product design. Vanessa organized a celebration with cupcakes and mood boards. She handed out swag emblazoned with "Trust the Shift." On that very day, 3 engineers resigned before lunch. They left without notice, just packed their things, and walked away. They put on their headphones and stepped into the haze like cowboys in an old Western film. I attempted to intervene once and suggested we pause the reorganization until the client metrics stabilized. Brandon only grinned, cold and calculating like a python wearing loafers. "We appreciate your emotional commitment, but this is not a nostalgia project," they said. They shut me out completely. Every decision bypassed me as if I were an obstacle. Meetings happened without my invitation. Slack channels went silent. When I refreshed dashboards, I noticed features I had approved quietly disappeared. Despite it all, I showed up each day composed and professional, as if I were witnessing them tear down the home of my youth while secretly taking notes for the renovation lawsuit. Then Sam knocked on my door. He used to be my intern, a smart kid who once spilled Thai tea on our first server rack, cried about it, then stayed until 4 in the morning fixing the cables. Now he was the product lead of the mobile team, the last original hire left standing. He didn't sit, he just stood in the doorway as though ready to flee. "They have the list," he whispered. "Layoffs, and you are on it." I looked up in disbelief. "Who told you?" "It doesn't matter. It's coming. They want you out before the next quarter so they can boast post-founder independence in the upcoming investor update." "Thank you, Sam." He nodded once and left like he had delivered a funeral speech. That night, I did not pour bourbon. Instead, I poured ink. I pulled out the checkbook Mason had sent weeks ago. One slip, blue ink, no decoration. Pay to the order of the company name, amount $100. In the memo, 14C buyback, then signed and dated. A quiet force rested inside a rectangular shape I carefully placed within a crisp white envelope. No stamp adorned it yet. It waited patiently, much like myself. I slipped it away into the drawer of my nightstand, right beside a flashlight and a photo capturing the first 5 of us gathered around the original server in a freezing apartment kitchen. We looked awkward, we appeared unstoppable. Let them believe they were winning. Let them occupy their time celebrating layoffs and debating color schemes, because when they finally decided to act, that envelope would be the one that shattered everything completely. HR scheduled the meeting for 4:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday. The calendar invitation bore no subject line, simply a block of time named Update. As if I were too naive to understand what was coming. The hallway leading to the HR offices reeked as if someone had desperately sprayed Febreze over a dumpster fire. I entered wearing my finest blazer, without makeup, hair pulled back, face set in an unreadable calm, like a detached librarian witnessing your spirit decay. The conference room was already arranged. Brandon and Vanessa sat side by side as if they were prom royalty attending the least exciting dance on earth. The HR representative, Rebecca, perched on the edge of her chair, gripping a manila folder like it contained a venomous snake. Brandon spoke first, dripping with fake sympathy. "We've valued everything you've created here sincerely, but we believe it is time to head in a new direction." New direction meant corporate euthanasia. Vanessa added with her usual cheerful tone, "This does not erase your legacy. Think of it as a new chapter." He grinned as if she had just put down a golden retriever and wanted recognition for petting it first. They slid the termination documents across the table with the precision of experienced executioners. Severance offer, offensive non-disclosure clause, ineffective. A pre-written statement for my public departure if I decided to announce it on LinkedIn. They even added hashtags. I said nothing and showed no reaction, simply flicking through the papers as if reviewing a shopping list. Becca cleared her throat and said we would need my badge and laptop before I left the floor. Naturally, they did not even allow me to return to my office. Security met me outside the room as if I were a national threat, or something worse, a danger to the company itself. He accompanied me to the elevator in silence. The large man did not utter a single word. I handed over my laptop, badge, and access card. He nodded, stepped back, and pressed the button. As the doors closed, I caught a final glimpse of Vanessa laughing already at something Brent had whispered. I did not punch a wall, yell, or cry. I went home, made tea, and opened the drawer. Envelope, check, clause. The following morning, Mason slid the package into a FedEx envelope with hands that remained steady. "Want me to add a cover letter?" "No," I said, "just this." The letter was only 4 lines, with one being crucial. "I am exercising my right under Section 14C. The check is enclosed. Mason sealed it, slapped the label on, and dropped it in the outgoing mail bin. By the time they finished their morning lattes were already in hand as the package was on its way. My fingers were steady and my breathing calm. They assumed they had erased me with just a calendar invite, but in truth, what they had done was sell me back my own company for exactly $1. The envelope arrived on a Monday. Picture Brandon glancing over the first line with a smirk, probably saying, "She's just trying to intimidate us," feet resting on his desk, like a man unaware that he was already losing. Vanessa probably let out a nasal, forced chuckle and dismissed it as typical founder drama. I was not present, yet I know these two so well I could write the script myself. They delayed a full day before even sending the document to legal. On Tuesday morning, the legal counsel, not a junior assistant but Marion, a woman who speaks in clipped syllables as if every word is a billable hour, asked, "Have you read this section?" We skimmed through it, but she insisted, "You need to read Section 14C. It is enforceable." Brandon laughed, convinced it would not hold since the contract was years old. Marion repeated firmly, "There is no expiration clause, and more importantly," she hesitated. I would have paid a fortune to see Brandon's expression at this moment. Her team never finalized the legal merger. The startup was never completely absorbed. The entity remains active in Delaware. She owns the controlling interest. Silence followed. "She does not want control," Brandon said finally. "She wants to make a point." "No scene," Marion corrected him. "The point has been made. Now she's reclaiming the asset. And you handed her the key by firing her without cause." By Wednesday, Mason had felt the buzz building. He had been waiting exactly 72 hours, alerted by a handful of important former clients. Not openly, just a few discreet, pointed messages. "Just a heads up, I'll be working independently again soon. Same tools, same team if they want in better leadership." My phone lit up like the holiday season. First, it was Daniel from Medscope. "Heard a rumor, you coming back online," then Joya. "Our very first enterprise client. You know we will follow you. We only stayed because you were still there." Even Asha messaged, "You're the queen. I'm ready to burn the old place down if you are." By Friday, Brandon was losing sleep, and Vanessa vented furiously on LinkedIn about the perils of ego in tech leadership. The irony was so strong it might have been served on fine china. Inside the company, panic grew. The clause had teeth, the check had cleared, the board was being briefed. I pictured the first investor call as a massacre, and all I did was sit in my home office sipping tea, watching the empire they had built around ego and shortcuts begin to crack like peeling paint. They thought they had buried me. They forgot I held the shovel. The emergency board meeting landed on their calendars like a meteorite, Saturday 9 a.m. Mandatory attendance. No breakfast spread, no celebratory drinks. Just furious men in zip vests and women in tailored blazers, all fixated on the same document. My original sales contract displayed on the screen with Section 14C highlighted like a warning flag in a minefield. Brandon attempted to handle it. Cool at first cleared his throat, adjusted his cufflinks, and used phrases like technical oversight and unforeseen exposure. Yet, by the 3rd slide, the sweat was pooling at his temples. By the 5th slide, his shirt collar resembled a crime scene. She sent the check by mail. One of the investors, shocked, asked, "Yes, and you cashed it?" They did not know. You overlooked it. Vanessa attempted to steer the conversation with jargon. The brand identity remains strong along with our user trust metrics. Stop. A board member interrupted sharply. Do you realize what she just accomplished? She exploited your own documents to escape with the core of this business. And you handed her the controls with a smile. Meanwhile, outside, the repercussions had begun. Medscope revealed they were pausing their contract queue pending clarity in the organization. A healthcare AI conglomerate from Boston released a statement saying they would reconsider vendor partnerships depending on who was originally in charge. Joya, bless her, went full scorched earth on Twitter, posting, "We signed for her. Not the rebrand, not the cartoon beach ball," which received 60,000 likes. 15 industry publications shared the story the same day. Ren's face turned pale upon seeing the headline, "Founder reclaims control thanks to a $1 clause." A brilliant example of revenge through fine print. On my side, I was not celebrating exactly. Mason and I explored office spaces 2 blocks away from the previous headquarters. We did not need merely a floor, we needed speed and agility, a place equipped with fiber. No internet, and absolutely no motivational posters. We discovered it on the 5th floor, a corner space with glass walls, room enough for 20 desks, a couple of meeting rooms, and a coffee machine that clearly announced we were back and not in the mood for nonsense. While Brandon was still fumbling to talk his way out of what felt like a rebellion, Mason had already signed the lease. On Monday morning, I dropped by the old office wearing jeans and a hoodie, just to rub it in a little. The receptionist, a new girl who probably had no idea who I was, glanced up nervously. She asked if I was there for the press tour. I smiled and said, "No, darling, I am next door on the same street with a better view and faster Wi-Fi." By the time Brandon arrived that day, 7 resumes from his current team had already landed in my inbox. Sam's came first, and his cover letter simply said, "I kept the receipts. Let's rebuild, and this time with teeth." Within 2 weeks, my inbox resembled a reunion invitation. Asha sent an email saying, "I've got half the old NLP crew in a group chat. Just say the word." Julian's resume came with the subject line, "Ready to unfuck things." Even Beth from accounting, who had once sent me a passive-aggressive spreadsheet titled "Founder Fantasies versus Budget Realities," forwarded a revised profit and loss statement and said, "I never liked Brandon. Let's do this." We didn't conduct interviews. Instead, we held a war council. 10 of us gathered on folding chairs surrounded by pizza boxes and a whiteboard already marked with the slogan, "Operation Get the Damn Engine Running Again," highlighted boldly in red. Sam brought donuts, Mason brought contracts, and I brought determination, sharp and framed. We hung it on the wall even though we did not need inspiration. What fueled us was rage, caffeine, and the bond forged by shared trauma. That very week, a tech journalist from Fastline Weekly sent me a direct message. He asked, "Is it true? Can you clarify this? You bought back your company for $1 after they fired you." I explained, technically I reclaimed it, but yes, that was the story. The next day, the headline read, "Front Page Digital, the Dollar Queen, How One Clause Sank a Tech Empire." Vanessa published a wild opinion piece on LinkedIn titled "The High Road and the Low Ceiling." It included a stock image of an eagle and quotes from Brené Brown. Her post was taken down within an hour. Meanwhile, Brandon was scrambling to fix the crash. Layoffs were announced, a desperate PR effort launched, and a sponsored podcast nobody tuned into was released. Nothing reversed the decline. The stock collapsed like a heavy sack of wet cement. The board called an emergency meeting again, yet this time anger was absent. They were finished with it. Resignation letters leaked before they were even signed. Brandon's final message ended up sounding unintentionally poetic. I believe in innovation even if others fail to see the vision. In other words, he admitted defeat and unemployment. As for me, I was busy with rebranding. Same name, but a different identity. Our new logo was a sleek phoenix outlined in flames, rising from a smoldering dollar bill. It was subtle in theory, but deeply satisfying in reality. The tagline for the relaunch campaign came naturally. Back by demand, built to last. Former clients didn't just come back, they invested. 3 of them pooled resources to create a bridge round that jump-started our comeback. They said, "We trust you," but we never really trusted them. By the end of the month, we were not merely surviving, we were loud, rebuilt, strengthened, burned, and reborn right in the public eye. It was like a TED Talk with fangs. Every time I passed by the old building, I looked up at the 5th floor where the lights were always faint now. The funny thing about arrogance is that it cannot withstand impact. Humility, however, is a fierce force, written in blue ink, and it soars. Suddenly, they surprised me by offering the keynote spot. I was originally booked for a panel called Ethical Growth in Post-Hype Markets, dry enough to make a cactus weep. But the night before, the original keynote speaker, a venture capitalist visionary guru, decided to cancel to chase mushrooms in Bali, or some such nonsense. So the conference chair called me and said, "We want to move you to the keynote. Your story is compelling." People were hungry for a raw, real tale, and oh, did they want it. The room was packed with lanyarded founders, investors, media vultures, and those LinkedIn influencers who pen essays about failure as long as the numbers add up. The lights dimmed and my name appeared in bold white letters on a black screen. The price of forgetting the fine print. I stepped onto the stage slowly, deliberately, my face still serious. Smiling would come later. First, I spoke about the microwave, the pad thai, the cracked apartment walls. How I sold my company for $1 because I believed in the mission. How that faith was manipulated by people fluent in buzzwords but lacking integrity. I shared every piece of it. Trusty, the cartoon mascot, symbolized the layoffs and betrayal vividly. Then I revealed the rest of the story. Gasps spread through the crowd like bursting popcorn when I reached the moment I sent the payment. A man in the front row whispered loudly enough to startle his companion, "Holy shit!" Then I proceeded, reaching beneath the podium to pull out a simple black frame. Inside it was a check, signed, dated, the ink slightly faded by the weight of its significance. I held it up slowly and proudly, like a legendary sword drawn from stone. Cameras flashed relentlessly, arms raised like a digital battalion. The room fell silent but electric, and you could even hear a bracelet jangling in the 3rd row. Then my phone gently chimed, hidden in the pocket of my blazer. I tapped the screen and Mason's name appeared. One line of text appeared, "Final board resignation." It was over. I had outmaneuvered them all. I didn't just smile, I grinned with fierce satisfaction. A grin that silently declared, "I told you so," but with legally binding authority. Turning back to the audience, I wrapped it up with a closing statement. Always read the contract. Pausing twice for effect, especially if you think you're smarter than the woman who crafted it. Mic drop. The standing ovation wasn't because I created an empire, but because I reclaimed it. Thanks for joining this journey, Office Warriors. Subscribe for more switch-flipping drama that will make your former colleagues sweat.